Welcome to the December 12th, 2022 school committee meeting, the hard to believe last full school committee meeting of 2022. Before we begin, I will read the following statement. This meeting is being offered remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022 and all other applicable laws temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any participant wishes to record this meeting, please notify the chair at the start of the meeting in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, so that the chair may inform other participants of said recording. We have Harbor Media recording tonight. Is anyone else in the audience or online recording? No? All right. We are also joined tonight remotely. Matt Kosman, our member, Matt Kosman is participating remotely tonight. So any votes we take, we will do by roll call vote for that. And then, now that we're called to order, just before we started, I did want to just share a brief message with our staff. We are so grateful to this school community who bring their talents and their energy and their passion to work in the hard work of educating and caring for students every day. And while we don't always get to see what happens in those classrooms, in the hallways, on the buses, in the offices, in the cafeterias, we do witness how this entire community benefits from the care and compassion shown to our children. Your work today is not easy, and some of your yesterdays were really, really hard. And the challenges are certainly not behind us. Truthfully, I don't think the challenges of educating students are ever going to be behind us. I think they just shapeshift and turn into different challenges. This year, one of our biggest challenges is going to be budgetary. So I just wanted to assure everyone in the staff and in our community that we collectively, the school committee, and this leadership team are committed to attaining our strategic plan priorities. We are going to be insistent that our schools have the funds that they need to meet the needs of every single student. And we will advocate with purpose and conviction for every single penny we need to meet those needs. And I just wanted you to know that. So as we head into the holidays, I hope you'll be heartened to know that there is a very long list of people in this community, from the leadership team that is here tonight, to the leadership's teams in your buildings, to the families and the students in our district, to countless community members that are out there who respect you, who value you, and who admire the work that you do. And I think that you should know that the members of this committee are at the top of that list of admirers. So we want you to know we will fight for you, and we are going to fight for our students and our families because you are worth fighting for. So thank you. With that, I will take a motion to approve minutes.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes of the school committee meeting held on November 14th, 2022.
Second?
I will second.
All right. Any questions, comments? No?
Yes. I have some proposed edits, which I've shared with Jen already. The first one is motions to reflect what was voted on. So the first one would be proposed after-school strings pilot program through Kids in Action at South Elementary School beginning in January 2023. And the second motion to reflect what we actually voted on was proposed pre-K Spanish immersion pilot program through Kids in Action at Foster Elementary School for 2023-2024 school year. That was the first one.
Okay.
Then the second was to include the motions that we made for the school improvement plans. So the first one would be a motion to approve the 2022-2023 South Elementary School Improvement Plan. And the second is the motion to approve the 2022-2023 Plymouth River Elementary School Improvement Plan. And then the last two comments are because we had included in the minutes that there were some questions asked about the strings program and the PRS improvement plan. I had proposed to reflect all of the questions that were asked. So currently for the strings program, it says the committee asked questions about the cost and transportation, but there was also a question about who could participate. So I was going to propose that we amend that to say that the committee asked questions about cost, transportation, and participation. And then on the PRS improvement plan, we did ask a question about when restorative justice practices might be restarted, and a question about instituting a METCO mentoring program. So again, all of that was sent to Jen, but wanted the committee to know.
Okay, thank you. Everybody good with those changes? Any other items?
I
Ally?
had one quick change, just clarifying the dates on the Climate Action Planning Committee meeting and the Hingham Arts Alliance, which I sent to Jen.
Okay.
So after the meeting, all those edits will be added on the Word document, and then that will be sent. The PDF will then be resent to Sherry
Okay.
once it's approved. If
Okay.
the changes are approved verbally, I'll make the changes on the document.
Got it.
And then
Okay. And have those for the
and add those.
formal minutes. Okay. Anything else? Matt, you good with those changes? All right. Do you want to amend the motion? Yep.
So I'll amend the motion to approve the minutes of the school committee meeting held on November 14th, 2022 with the proposed edits.
And I will second.
All right. I'll do a roll call vote. Matt?
Aye.
Allie?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Ness?
Aye.
I am an aye as well. All right, great. Minutes of the November 28th meeting. All right.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the school committee meeting held on November 28th, 2022.
I will second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so
busy.
similar comments. First one is motions for the school improvement plans were not included in there. So the motion to approve the 2022-2023 Hingham Middle School Improvement Plan. And the second one, the motion to approve the 2022-2023 Hingham High School Improvement Plan. And then again, questions to be reflected that were asked. So for the Hingham Middle School Improvement Plan, there was a question relating to when restorative justice practices might be restarted, and a question for the Hingham High School Improvement Plan relating to Flex Block Pathways program and when what expanding the community service might be. So those I will send to Jen because I did not send that to her yet.
Okay. Any other items? Do you want to do you want to? No, that's right. Do you want to amend it?
Okay, so I will make a motion to approve the minutes of the school committee meeting held on November 28th, 2022 with the proposed edits.
I will second.
All right. Allie?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Ness?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. I'm going to mix it up tonight when I call. Keep everybody on their toes. Be ready for your answers. All right. Okay, that's great. We are caught up on minutes. Item 3 on our agenda is questions and comments. The Hingham School Committee encourages community engagement, and we welcome questions and comments as agenda items are discussed at our meetings. We do have 15 minutes set aside at the beginning of this meeting for comments or questions that are under the purview of the school committee, but not on tonight's agenda. Before I read all the rest of it, I'll see if anybody has any questions or comments for tonight, either here in the room. All right. Matt, is there anybody on the Zoom that has their hand raised for public comment?
No hand raised.
No? Okay. I'm going to give it 5 seconds because I think sometimes there's a little bit of a delay. All right. So are you still good? Okay. All right. So we'll move on to item 4, superintendent's report. Dr. Adams?
So in your packet, I provided a couple of communications, recent communications, all in one place for you. One is from Student Services. One is from, 2 are from Katie Roberts and team of directors on elementary. One focused on elementary curriculum updates, and a second focused on secondary updates. You can see lots of focus on teaching and learning and some happenings at both levels, our elementary and secondary campus, as well as a district newsletter from November. In addition, I just wanted to share that on Saturday, Ms. Amy Jackson, director of METCO, and I were at the Boys and Girls Club in Dorchester on Talbot Ave, and we were in the hands of recruiting families to apply for METCO. And in addition, the application process is a little different this year. Families will rank their top 3 choices And so we were there talking about all the great offerings that Hingham has to offer. In addition, Katie Roberts and the elementary principals are already planning for kindergarten for next year, our next class of kindergartners. And we have an open house for new families who have children who will be entering kindergarten in September of 23 on January 11th here at 6:30 in Town Hall. In addition, Mary Andrews, Katie Roberts and I were at, on Saturday, we were happy to honor 5 students who, from the middle school and the high school, who were awarded the Patriots Pen as part of the Democracy in Action project in their essays. So we're very proud of those students who participated and their teachers as well, who supported them. In addition, in your packet, we have some December 1st enrollment numbers updated for you. And then third, there is a timeline to begin later on this month up through the beginning of March for the assistant superintendent search.
Any questions for Dr. Adams? No.
I just wondered if when we're going through the budget in January, we used to get information on out of district and vocational students, and that might be helpful. So on their enrollment sheet, we used to get that information, and that helps when we're going through the budget process.
And I've glanced right over 4.1, so if I could go back.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that okay?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, of course.
Do you have the slides? No.
Which one?
The care solace. We were able, and Heather Rodriguez is here and she can answer questions as well. We are grateful to Suzanne Vinnis and Heather Rodriguez who were able to identify this resource called Care Solace. My understanding is the district had allotted some ESSER funds to pursue the William and James interface, which is a referral process for families, students in the community to be able to access support in identifying mental health professionals. They're no longer accepting new communities as they have reached probably their capacity for right now. Care Solace sort of has the same sort of works in the same way. And we started last week at the end of the week to start to share some information about Care Solace as a resource to families. So the way you can access Care Solace is there's 3 ways for both our families, staff, and students to access it. One is our faculty, guidance counselors, school adjustment counselors who are working directly with students can refer a family and walk the family through the process of getting and identifying mental health supports. The second is through a phone call. There's a number you can call and you can actually get a live person 24 hours. They also provide multilingual supports. And the third is through a website. We have our own dedicated website that allows families to look for resources, particularly in this area. The goal of the program, Care Solace, you can move on, Sherry, thanks, is to sort of help navigate what have been barriers to mental health supports, sort of navigating insurance claims, navigating and finding folks who are actually accepting patients. They'll actually help you identify a mental health provider, help you identify and actually see if the person is taking patients, and actually even go through and make the appointment for you and walk you through the whole process, and then also follow up with you and the family afterwards. So this just sort of shares, if you're looking for help, they quickly match you to suited providers, make calls and confirm those wait times, make that appointment for you, and then afterwards facilitate and make connections. So our intent is to continue to sort of share the information as widely as we can and continue to support families in gathering information and learning more about the services offered. We also will be monitoring how much it's accessed. We don't get any information about how it's accessed. If someone calls or uses the website, we just get some numbers, and we'll be looking to see and sort of assess how many folks are accessing that over the rest of the year. Heather, did I miss anything? I don't know if you have questions about the particular service.
It's a great, great resource. Thank you, Heather and Suzanne, for finding it and for bringing it to us, Dr. Adams, because I think particularly in these times, right, people are still struggling, and this is a really great resource. And I know the town is putting some efforts and resources behind this as well through Aspire. So I think this is a good complement to that service, particularly for our students and their families. So thank you again.
Does this affect if there's crisis mental health services needed during the school day in school, would the guidance and school staff be able to use this, or does this not have anything to do with the systems that are already in place to deal with acute crises?
You have to come up to the microphone. Sorry.
I'm
Heather.
sorry.
That's a good question.
So no, during the school day, so Parents Halls is not a crisis intervention service. They're not the actual providers. They just kind of connect families and the community with providers. So we do have access to Aspire's mental health crisis team if a student is having crisis in school during the school day, where we need someone to either come out to the school and help respond, or if we need to walk the family through connecting them with Aspire to take it out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think one of the important caveats we were reminded as we went through the training is if someone's in crisis, they should call immediately 911 and get immediate support. This is a mental health referral process to take you through identifying resources, both short term and long term.
No,
Sorry.
No, that's
Thank
okay.
you.
No, you're good. Are you gonna go through the enrollment numbers? Or
No, any questions on the enrollment numbers? I think as we've noticed, our elementary population is remaining pretty stable. And our middle school and high school is pretty stable. We've lost just a few students at both levels since October 1st.
Okay. All right. So total enrollment currently at 3,802. Any questions from the committee on enrollment? Okay. All right. Under item 5, communications. So 5.1, do you have any communications? No. Nathan is not here this evening. I think everybody took advantage of, or took Nathan's, what was the right word to use? Encouragement to go to see the musical, which was phenomenal, and all of the many musical offerings that this month that the schools are offering. Other communications? Anyone on the committee? Matt? The only one communication I will provide is I've heard many complimentary reports on the great communications that have been going out. I know a lot of people have, particularly the curriculum update that just went out. So really great work on the communications. I think families are really pleased with the information that's being shared. So thank you. Sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. Did you want to go over the timeline for the search, or just what's in our packet?
Yep. The timeline I shared earlier, the timeline starts at the end of this month and goes through the beginning of March. Tries to take into account the February and vacation breaks that we have in between. And so we'll look to get that started in January and hope to finish up the beginning of March.
Okay. Thank you. I know it is a process, but I think a good process. I mean, Katie's doing an amazing job as interim, but I do think that doing the process is a great way for everybody involved. So, all right. Item 6, we do not have any unfinished business, so we'll move on to item 7 to discuss a proposed Model UN student trip in January 2023, and act as appropriate. So that information is in the packet. And hello, Catherine. How are you?
How are you?
Good. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
So, my name is Catherine Black. I'm a social studies teacher at the high school. I'm here in my capacity as advisor for the Model United Nations Club. And every year, barring the last couple of years, we have attended the Harvard Model United Nations Conference, which is 3 nights staying at the Chairperson Hotel. This year, we have 17 students who have signed up to attend the conference. And we're extraordinarily excited by it. I have brought I co-chaperone Jim Kirkcaldy out of literal retirement for this. So Mr. Kirkcaldy and I will be chaperoning these students in this. We are representing the country of Jordan. We are the delegation from Jordan this year. We have some specialized committees. Kids are really excited about it. I'm extraordinarily excited to finally get the in-person conferences really back up and running. So, knock on wood, seems to be going pretty well planning wise. If anyone has any questions about the logistics of the trip or anything, please answer.
Anyone? Matt?
I will say that they have rolled back previously quite stringent COVID-19 policies from last year. Last year, they were going to be sending to remote any committees who one person would test positive, which would have put everybody remote. And pretty much, I mean, as soon as with the surge last year, and so we ended up having to cancel last year because it was a very expensive, costly trip in order, for people to just end up on Zoom. This year, they have mask optional and no vaccine mandate this year. So fingers crossed.
No, it will be great to see it come back. I remember many years ago, I had the pleasure. I was having a girls' weekend, and we happened to be staying at the Sheraton when the Model UN was happening. So I got to see all the excitement of all the kids. It was very hard getting to the elevator. Very, very hard. The coffee lines were awfully long in the morning too. But other than that, no, it was great though to see all the kids. I mean, they are so energetic and so engaged. It was really
incredible experience for everyone.
Yeah, it is. All right.
How nice that for the return we have such a fascinating country.
I know.
It's good luck.
It's always good to be either a very sort of a security committee kind of country or slightly controversial country. We have a lot of airtime.
Great. All right. With no questions, someone want to make a motion?
Yep. I'll make a motion to approve the proposed Model UN student trip in January 2023.
And I will second that.
All right. Any questions? No? All right. Matt?
Aye.
Allie?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Ness?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Have a great time. All right. Item 7.2 is to receive the East Elementary School School Improvement Plan and act as appropriate. So, Mr. Hawes, thank you for being here.
Happy to be here. Also happy to see many of my teammates here. I really appreciate their support. And it's nice to be presenting in front of you all for the first time. So what we've built so far is a school improvement plan that represents not only some new leadership transition and some new priorities, but also taking into consideration many of the pieces that were set up in the year before my arrival with not only Dr. Donovan's year as interim, but some of the pieces that were district-wide priorities. So I learned a lot. About East Elementary throughout this year. Our educators show passion for their work. Our student body is really kind and enthusiastic. We've seen our students thrive in enrichment opportunities such as Hobby Night, where they get to showcase their hobbies and passions outside of school, but also our after-school Explorers program, which brings modules like skateboarding, cooking, cake decorating, board games. It's really wonderful to sort of see their passion throughout the school day, but also some nice extensions as well. Again, in the 3 or 4 months that we've been open, it's been wonderful to get to know not only the student body, but just to see our educators in action.
I think you're not presenting, so present the slides.
There we go.
So our council, who are here tonight, Cindy Barrett is in attendance. Really appreciate that. But we've got Matt Cosman is our school committee liaison as well. So we've only had 2 meetings up until this presentation, 2 meetings to sort of take a look at the sort of general structure of the school improvement plan, and it's been helpful with the team members to understand the historical trend of our goals, things that were either worked on previously on goals and we're either taking it a step further, or things that were brand new and helping them understand how they might fit into the goals. They were also able to give feedback on a few draft items prior to constructing the series. Our theme this year is charting our course, which felt appropriate given the new leadership, and also our East Explorers moniker, sort of mascot for our school. New direction over the past few years as well has helped us arrive at this theme. Amanda, Donovan, and I have really developed a great partnership. We feel aligned not only in our vision, but our course for it. Last year, Dr. Donovan, who is now our assistant principal, led the East team as its interim. And there are several things to highlight from last year's work from Dr. Donovan. Bringing new team members on board, guiding staff through the transition, also establishing expectations for return to pre-COVID functions as best as we could. Some good work getting our equity committee up and running. Amanda had not only chaired those meetings throughout the course of the year with our equity team members, but also was instrumental in getting our Pride crosswalk installed at East. Another piece that is something that Amanda and the Equity Committee started last year that is also represented in our school improvement plan, and I'll touch upon a little bit later, is the school's family roving library. She also helped guide the first beginning stages of the MTSS structure, helping math specialists and reading specialists integrate into the team, helping integrate our interventionists, and identify the ways in which those interventions will take place in our classrooms. Moving forward into this year, we've developed a 2-year school improvement plan that seeks to support new initiatives and expand on the ones that were begun last year by Dr. Donovan. The plan is also shaped by the goals and actions developed within Hingham Public Schools strategic plan. And as we go through, I'll be identifying the connections to our strategic goals. So what I've set out are 4 goals for our school improvement. The first is to increase understanding of educational programming, providing for increased community connections, it's measured by ongoing stakeholder feedback, and surveying of staff, family, and students. Analyzing student performance data is goal 2, identifying both instructional and intervention groupings, regularly monitoring student progress in an effort to ensure student success. The third goal is establishing safe and inclusive environments through regular social and emotional training. And the fourth is to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion through coordinated efforts to increase cultural exposure and provide staff with tools to support our students. So goal 1, communication and resources, is the central focus, and many of the action items within this goal relate to the district's strategic objective of creating partnerships between home and school communities that promote a sense of belonging and allow for social, emotional, physical, and academic wellness. We've already implemented new streams of either communicating with our families and the greater East community and within the internal East team. Moving forward, we'll also be hosting information sessions on important topics like MCAS and professional development. We've also sought feedback from our parents in the form of surveys, and we'll continue to do so throughout the plan. We also believe that the information and resources we provided to families in our East team are more robust and organized than we have than in the past. And that includes everything from back-to-school information and resources available to families, faculty guidebooks, and our internal processes. One of the things I'm proud of right away is opening the doors to our school. It was nice that we heard a lot of enthusiasm to have parents back in for curriculum night and several sort of information sessions that we've got planned throughout the year. But outside of the formal information sessions, formal evenings to come into our school and experience that, not only have we seen an increase in the parent volunteers back in our classrooms and doing activities, but I'd like to share, to the best of my ability, some insight into what's happening throughout the school day, not only through our weekly newsletter, The Compass Rose, but also through our East Elementary School Instagram account. nearly weekly now. I've been sort of walking through the classrooms, taking pictures of students in action, and sharing those along with some other important information and bulletins from our school. But I'd like the parents to be able to have a pretty regular slideshow to take a peek at either student products or just to see the collaboration. The last and most recent opportunity we had to highlight was some wonderful work done in our foreign language classes, in which they were communicating and providing cards to students who were in orphanages in Latin America. We've also highlighted the wonderful work happening in our makerspace classes. So it's a nice tool to be able to provide some snapshots as well. Goal 2 is centered around analyzing student performance. The central focus connects to the district's strategic objective of ensuring student access to aligned, high-quality K-12 curriculum, innovative research-based practices, and data-informed instruction. We've begun the process of examining our EdCast performance from last year, in addition to fall inventory testing using iReady Schools and student performance to establish an effective structure for interventions throughout grades K through 5. Currently, students are receiving targeted intervention in line with their performance, and this supports the district vision for MTSS with interventionists and the support of those interventionists by our reading and mathematics specialists. Our outstanding team of specialists and interventionists have a vital role to play in ensuring the success of this structure, and they're working each day to roll up their sleeves, support our students with specifically designed interventions in mathematics and reading with varying frequency depending on the grade. We've done an initial item analysis of last spring's MCAS, and we'll be using that information to not only investigate areas in which we need to improve, but also to examine the ways in which we teach and address related standards or content areas. We have plans to support both students in the high needs population who are in need of improvement, but also students who have performed at a high level, specifically implementing targeted support for both. Goal 3 relates to safe and inclusive environments, and the central focus is providing a safe and inclusive environment that aligns to the strategic objective of cultivating equitable and inclusive environments that promote a sense of belonging to allow for social, emotional, physical, and academic wellness. We see that playing out here at East Elementary with the addition of our new elementary guidance positions in multiple different ways. There are daily social emotional supports for students, such as morning reading, toolbox lessons, our school-wide language and expectations, offering check-in and checkouts that are specific to students. They can receive those supports on a daily basis that are embedded with multiple adults in multiple areas of our school. On an as-needed basis, with some restorative conversations, conflict resolutions, and just those one-offs that are needed. Direct service are supports/services via counseling, social groups, formal check-ins and checkouts, SEL screenings, and developing programming specific for students. And lastly, our faculty support benefits from social and emotional supports and the wonderful professionals that are comprising our guidance team at East. They provide training, consultation, data meetings, coaching our faculty up to some difficult conversations that they may have to have in the social emotional realm, and also obviously they are integral, someone who consults with administration often when we're talking about social emotional programming, either at the student level or at the school level. So we have options available to our students each day in many corners of our building, from Tier 1 classroom supports again, employed by our educators each day, to the direct service social emotional supports available to students who may have services written in education plans. With our team of guidance personnel, we're able to support students daily on an as-needed basis and through direct support. Goal 4, diversity, equity, and inclusion is the central focus. It connects to our efforts related to DEI, and again connects to the strategic objective of cultivating equitable and inclusive environments that promote a sense of belonging and allow for social, emotional, physical, and academic wellness. We've outlined steps and action items within this goal to expand our students' awareness of the greater world around them through cultural celebrations and recognition, implementation of monthly DEI themes, and highlighting our push toward inclusivity by expanding the libraries in our classroom to allow students exposure to cultures around the world, as well as those represented within our East student body. We'll also be planning to implement a METCO mentorship program at East, using the opportunities we've learned from our peers who have this up and running already, and also the motivation of our new METCO director, Amy Jackson. So the goals and the specific action steps that you've seen within the plan are spanning the 2 years of this plan. Most directly, or those that are right in our way as the next steps, are these true 4 areas. One, I picked a couple from each that we've got plans in the short term to implement, and then we'll be sort of providing progress and taking a look at ways that we can expand upon those over the course of those 2 years. But what's up next for us at East? Starting with goal 1, information, hosting MCAS information sessions, providing information, as Dr. Evans had mentioned, relative to our kindergarten processes, which are starting soon, and also seeking feedback regarding curriculum knowledge from our parent base, and then just basically how we're doing on communications and providing the supportive environments that we need for our students. Next up in goal 2, we're going to leverage the data that we have, utilizing Math Plus and intervention groupings. Soon, in the month of January, we'll be revisiting the initial assessments that our students underwent in September and October, and using their growth up until that point of the year to, again, adjust our instruction groupings to target the students who we need to see create more growth, and to sort of shuffle up some of those groups so that we can best represent the student needs at that moment in January. We'll also be continuing to evaluate MCAS target areas and talking about how instructionally we can adjust opportunities to provide content depth as we head into the MCAS tests this spring. Next up for goal 3 is updating some non-discrimination protocols, and we'll be touching upon several of those facets that mirror some of the professional development and learnings that we'll have sessions upcoming in January. And there also have been new laws and legislation that will be ensuring that the protocols and processes at East align with those. We'll also be debriefing our SEL screener, which takes place this month. Again, similar to what we had with goal 2, for leveraging the academic data, we'll be taking a look at the social emotional data, identifying students that we need to target, and providing support to those students. And lastly, under goal 4, we hope to provide some diverse experiences utilizing our roving family library, planning for MECO mentorship, planning our monthly themes for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thank you very much. I'm pleasure to present this new plan to you.
Thank you so much. That was really informative. Do we have any questions from the committee members?
I'm just wondering if I can get one of those pies because they looked amazing.
I know, they did. Tim, did you have something too?
Yeah, I was happy to see the makerspace is back up and running this year. That was sort of went away during COVID and came back. So that was awesome. How is that being utilized this year? I guess
We've got 2 fantastic team members that plan and execute those lessons. And Jenny Sina and Christina Haregi are 2 that are tasked with creating up these wonderful ideas for our students to really collaborate on. They pose STEM challenges to them. They're also really, really great at coming up with something that has a central theme, but adjusting either the access point or what the students will do relative to that theme from grades K, 1, and 2 on the lower end up to our 5th graders. So they'll be doing activities that are creating challenging tasks, putting STEM related activities in front of them with one specific theme, but again, they're adjusted from like what our kindergartners and 1st graders would do, but all the way up to our 5th graders.
awesome. And I don't know if this is sort of a general observation about all the elementary ones we've seen in restorative justice. Maybe this is more for Heather. I'm wondering, it seems like we're at a space right now with restorative justice where we picked it up and then kind of weren't able to continue with it over COVID. And we're sort of in the middle ground right now of like, for crisis situations, we'll use it, but it's not really, doesn't seem to be incorporated into sort of the lifeblood of the schools. I'm wondering if there's a general plan for both East and in general to kind of just work in education. This is sort of the point where stuff is dropped, and I don't want this to be dropped.
I don't think that it is, but sorry to just jump right in there.
And maybe I have a
yeah. I know,
misinterpreting things.
I know the team that would be directly responsible for utilizing restorative justice practices, whether it's the main office administration, some of our guidance team, or even just individual educators. Speaking for East solely, I know that we've been using the tenets of restorative justice and the specific functions of restorative justice practices in student conflict resolution, in problem solving, and helping students approach not only with awareness but empathy some of their actions. So those foundational sort of pieces for restorative justice, although maybe not in like a formal district-wide way, I know that the training that we all know is effective and the strategies that we all know that are effective that fall under that restorative justice umbrella are utilized quite often at East.
Oh, great.
So we also shared at the beginning of this year, guidance counselors and school adjustment counselors were trained. And our leadership team has been trained, guidance counselors, school adjustment counselors have been done tier 1 training. What's additionally needed is time and some resources to continue to do some of that training going further down into our teaching staff. And so 2 challenges. One is the resources funding for that professional development to happen. And the second is teacher time in order for that to happen.
Right.
So it's not forgotten. It's just, trying to identify how do we allocate and look at those resources and find places where it can happen.
Absolutely. And if I just to be more specific about sort of what it seems like a lot of the training is happening. I'm not sure if the practices aren't utilized on sort of a daily basis in the schools. When crises come up, they won't be as effective or as useful. And so I don't know if I'm misinterpreting that. Sort of the place we are with restorative justice now is we're able to use it in sort of these when there's conflict situations and sort of acute situations, but it's not. I don't know if it's. Maybe I have a total
I think you're accurate in the sense that we need to continue training.
Okay.
In addition, our teachers.
Uh-huh.
I think our hope was in training guidance counselors that they could, as they go into classrooms, they could use it with students, but we just need to do a lot more training of staff so that it becomes part of the culture of the way we have discussions. They can easily be integrated into content areas. So it's a way to formulate discussions and dialogue across students with our families. It's just we need more training resources and time are 2 barriers.
Awesome. Thank you. I didn't mean that as a criticism. I meant more as a question of how do we sort of steer the ship as we're going so it doesn't get lost. Thank you.
Anything else?
I'm good.
Matt, you good? There is a question.
I know Barbie when she does have her hand raised.
All right. Yep. No, thank you. Barbie? Barbie, are you? Oh, there you go.
Hi. I just had a question. I thought you guys were kind of sharing a little bit clearer of the sort of justice stuff, and I was looking for clarification
So sorry, you thought we were.
if you got a consensus of the parents' wants on that in the school system at all.
Sorry, you're breaking up a little bit. So is your question that you thought we were moving away from restorative justice based on parent feedback?
I thought I had overheard that there was, from what I can hear from those I've spoken to, part of it, that it was, so
I'm so sorry, Barbie, you're cutting in and out. So I'm I'm hearing like every other word, unfortunately. Do you want to try it one more time? All right, now I can't hear you at all. But
She's back on mute right now.
okay. Correct me. Think her question might be, she was under the impression that when we moved away from restorative justice during COVID, that was sort of the parents' wish that we moved away from restorative justice.
that's what I
heard. I'm
what I
not
was
sure
hearing
that
too.
that's true though.
No.
And I would
Yeah.
say restorative practices are a best instructional practice for social emotional learning, both at all of the tiers. So we've
Mhm.
talked a lot about multi-tiered systems of support. And at tier 1, it's a way for the whole classroom to have dialogue around everyday classroom issues, around content. So that's your tier 1. At tier 2 and tier 3, it's to really help manage conflict as they come up. Could be a conflict on the playground, a conflict in the classroom. So it's a strategy in a way, and it's a best practice about how we approach both social emotional learning and discipline at all levels. And so in order to be on the forefront of those best practices, we should be striving to include restorative practice as a set of skills for all of our educators, as another way to further the social emotional learning skills of our students. So, and I think that's, you'll hear and you heard through all the school improvement plans that that's really important as we try to strive to say, how do we continue to do and build upon the work that's already been done.
All right. Hopefully, Barbie, that addresses your question. I hope we summarized it correctly. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, I would take a motion to accept the East School Improvement Plan.
I will make a motion to approve the 2022-2023 East Elementary School Improvement Plan.
I will second.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. Seeing none. Allie?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Ness?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well.
Thank you all.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
Great
you. Nice job.
presentation. Nice job. Item 7.3, we're going to come back to that. That's winter coaching assignments, but Coach Quattromoni is not here yet. He's at a game right now. So we'll go to 7.4 to receive an update on beginning of year assessment data.
Yep, so we're going to invite Mary Andrews, Director of ELA, Dave Jewett, Director of Math, and Katie Roberts, Assistant Superintendent, to help us walk through the data. As promised, when we presented the MCAS data, we would come back and present a snapshot of literacy and math data from this fall to give you a sense of where our students are as we started the school year.
Great. Well, thanks, Dr. Adams. So hopefully this evening feels just one part of a year-long conversation that we have been having about MTSS and all of the ways that our excellent staff, many of whom are here this evening, representing some of our MTS roles in order to support all of our students. And again, we will continue to provide these snapshots to you throughout the year. And so at this point, you've now are probably very familiar with our MTSS diagram, in which we are featuring all of the data-driven decision-making, progress monitoring, and evidence-based supports and strategies that we are putting in place and really re-energizing and renewing for our students. And so this evening's presentation is specifically going to focus on the data that is used in order to provide those tiered supports that are targeted to the strengths and needs of our students. You'll notice in the tiers that the tiers are represented by arrows indicating the fluidity of the supports that students are needing. And so this evening, again, provides a snapshot of the data that is used in order to assign those tiers most effectively. And as part of this work, I just wanted to assure the community that we have always had a robust system of data collection. Our reading instruction is very much based in the science of reading. And you can see here an overview of the many assessments that we have always given our students with regard to reading. So we have always assessed using the DIBELS platform, also known as Acadience. We have always administered a number of the these ELA data sources. And in your packet this evening for the school committee, our reading team has kindly provided a glossary of terms, if you will, in order to, again, really dig down into the science of reading and the various skills that are assessed by each of these domains. The one new source of ELA data that we have introduced is the iReady platform that you've now heard quite a bit about. So in grades 3, 4, and 5, in addition to the already robust data set, we did add the additional iReady diagnostic measures in grades 3, 4, and 5. In the field of math, there were simply fewer data sources available. There are fewer commercially available products available to provide us with math data sources. And so previously, we primarily used our everyday math unit assessments and math MCAS as our two primary data sources. So this year, we did add iReady diagnostic assessment to that, which really rounds out our data and makes it even more robust. And so our iReady diagnostic for both ELA and math is administered 3 times a year, a beginning of year BOI, middle of year, and end of year diagnostic assessment, with additional progress monitoring taking place in between. And so this evening, I will now turn it over to the experts. Mary Andrews is here to share the ELA and reading data, and Dave will share the math data.
Okay, thanks, Katie. So tonight, before I forget, a quick thanks to the elementary, or actually district-wide literacy team members who are here tonight: Melissa Goldman, Chrissy Swanson, Jen Madden, and fortunately, we have Cindy Barrett and Mary Norton, who are here to support East, but we can't let their many contributions to literacy go unnoticed. So yay, thanks for staying. I have all these phono friends if I need them, so it's excellent. Tonight we're going to look at some of the composite data that we have of our two most robust data sources, being DIBELS in K2 and iReady at 3.5. But I do think it was helpful to just include, this is a snapshot from a data sheet from last year for grade 2, just to show people that when we make these decisions, the literacy teams, and looking at data, they're not just looking at the sort of like overall composite data. They're looking deeply into the subtests at how each child is doing at each point in the year. And this is in addition to progress monitoring data sheets that are kept on children as well. So I think that's helpful just for some context. Let's see. As they make those instructional groupings, we're paying close attention to all of those fancy numbers. If we take a look at this reading composite score that we have, just to give us an overall snapshot of, and again, this is a snapshot in time. This is a test done in September. Kindergarten was done a little bit later, once they got the hang of things, those little kindergartners. But, you know, we're already 3 months out from the administration of this beginning of year screener. And this is the composite of the DIBELS subtests that are included at each grade level. You'll notice on the original slide that Katie showed of all of our data sources, we're also doing some subtesting at grade 3 across the district, but they don't get a composite score because it's not the same number of subtests, and they're also doing iReady. So, and then once we get into 4 and 5, it is those children who still haven't met benchmark that we continue with in DIBELS. If we look at this, we're seeing that 69 to 82% respectively in those grade levels of our students were at benchmark at the administration of our beginning year assessment in September. And then we have our below and our well below benchmark students coming in at 22% for kindergarten, 31% grade 1, and 18%, and adding those last two columns together for grade 2. And of course, that's where we're looking and digging deeply into the subtests, as well as not just the DIBELS subtests, but the other subtests that are given that were listed on that original slide as we make our grouping decisions. And we're now in our second round of progress monitoring cycles. We've gone through one and did the progress monitoring assessments, and now in round 2 did our moving around. When we sift that out to our students with disabilities, I should have mentioned before, and this would be true, of course, with all students, it would be our expectation that this data will improve as we reassess in January and in June and problematic if it doesn't, but it always does. And again, we're looking at 39 to 63% of these students already at or above benchmark. And then if we look down the right there, we have 37% of students below or well below benchmark. Case students with disabilities at the beginning of the year. That comes out to, that's if we look at our total N, 7 students in the district. 61% of our first graders students with disabilities, or 22 students in the district, and 47% of our second graders, or 16 students with disabilities in the district, who are how the data showed up for them at the beginning of the year.
Is this a quick clarifying
Oh,
question?
sorry, sure.
Do the benchmarks move up over the year? So you're trying to hit a moving target?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Well said. We chased that target. Yes, they do for all 3 tests. If we look at our iReady data, we can see we have some interesting Massachusetts, for the schools, of course, that use iReady. Not all of them do, but for the ones that do, we have some good data to show how we look against those other Massachusetts schools, as well as some national data. It's really worth paying attention to that box up in the right-hand corner. In iReady land, for the beginning of year assessments, we're looking, there are 5 performance level indicators, right? And it's really the yellow and the green, all of those together. Those students are all ready for grade level work. And the reason that is how iReady works for the beginning of the year data is those kids are coming in as kids who are all set with the work from the year before. So they're showing up at the end of the grade level the year before, and here we are ready to go. Let's see. And as I said, that those comparisons look good. We don't have the same state and national comps for the students with disabilities, but Mr. Jewett did his bar graph magic for me, and there we go. There's at least a visual to give us a little bit, and I'll get into the actual percentages. I can turn pages. If we look at these students across the board here in our different iReady colors, we're in really good shape at our beginning of the year data that we've collected. We're looking at only 7% in the pink or red at grade 3, 9% pink or red at grade 4, and 10%. So we're off to a strong start. For our students with disabilities, we also have a solid showing for starters here, but we have 20% in that pink or red, the equivalent of 14 students in the district at grade 3, student with disabilities in that zone. 34% in that pink and red for grade 4, which is 18 students, and 31% at grade 5 in that pink or red zone to start the year, and that's also 18 students. These are the domains assessed by iReady. You'll notice on this slide and the following 2 that we would, as we would expect, students are placing out of phonological awareness and high frequency words tests, which is what's expected by grade 3. We still have some students working on those phonics skills, but it is, as we would expect, that vocab and comp are our areas that we're focusing on to bring more people up into that green zone by the end of the year. You'll notice, again, what we would expect when we look at grade 4, where, few students still working on mastering those phonics skills. But again, we're starting to pay a little bit closer attention to the differences, digging a little more deeply about, where we're struggling with literature versus informational text, and building up vocabulary. And this is the grade level where we start to really think about academic vocabulary and as it pertains to social studies and science. And this grade 4 data in general is really strong. It's sort of minimal percentages in that pink and red.
Do you prefer questions as we go along or at the end?
I'm almost done, but I'm happy to stop now if you'd like. That's fine.
I was just wondering. Now I'm blanking on the question that I have.
I have that effect on
sorry.
people too.
It'll come to me as
That's
soon as
okay.
you start talking. I'll wait
Sure,
till the
sure.
end.
And you can jump right in.
Yeah.
Okay. And then grade 5, phonics becomes a minimal area of concern. And we're, again, paying attention just as a point of interest. We don't put all our eggs in the beginning of year data basket, but it's interesting to note that we're seeing a little bit higher performance on informational text in 3 and 4 and a little lower in 5. So we'll continue to see how that develops and making sure that we're exposing children to an equal proportion of both of those modes. If we just sort of zoom back out in general, we're looking at on the DIBELS assessments, only 78% of all kindergartners and 63% of students with disabilities were at or above the fall benchmark, 69% of all first graders and 39% students with disabilities at or above, 82 of second graders, 53% of students with disabilities, second graders. And then in iReady, we're looking at 93 of all third graders versus 80% of students with disabilities, demonstrating that grade level readiness based on that beginning of the year assessment. And 91% of all fourth, 66 of students with disabilities, and 90% of all fifth, and 69% of students with disabilities. Oops, I skipped right to math. We do have some next steps that I think most people are familiar with. We're in the process of our reading adoption plan for fall of 2023, fully aligned with the science of reading principles. We're finishing up our MyView pilot, transitioning to an inter-reading pilot, and we'll hopefully be naming a program by April is the goal. We're continuing our focus on MTSS efficacy. We've always had data meetings. We're grateful for a schedule now that makes regular time for them. They were sort of catch as catch can before, sort of scotch taping things together. We have our reading specialists embedded in this Keys to Literacy training to support Tier 1 instruction in the areas of vocab and comprehension. We also have, for our K2 students, full access to the Lexia program that, in the same way as the MyPath option for iReady allows their online learning tools that accelerate that student learning, and they meet students where they are. They're adaptive, and they push students along from wherever they might be and bring them to where they need to get to for next steps. And then in the world of special education, there's an additional platform currently being used called Let's Go Learn. It offers additional assessments, progress monitoring, and additional personalized adaptive learning. And
I remember my question.
okay, I'm ready. You sure you don't want to throw it to
sorry
Dave?
for my deer
No,
in the
just
headlights
kidding.
moment. Looking at it's understandable that fewer and fewer students need phonics work as they get older because you should be weaning off phonics. And for the students that do need it, is that available as they go through? Because I know even if a middle schooler still needs phonics work and it's not available, like really tragic things happen.
Absolutely. So good question. So we have so the Tier 3 interventions that we have for those students, and those would be the ones that you saw in that bottom 5% in that zone. They get the Tier 3 intervention from our reading specialists if they're not in special education. Special educators and reading specialists at the middle school teach daily specialized reading sessions for those students who continue to struggle, because you are correct. It's a disaster if that's not remedied.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Quick question
Sure,
on the intervention groups that you are doing at the elementary level. Are those on for students who are on 504s or IEPs, or is it that's kind of to prevent them from needing those?
Yeah, so how it shakes out is when we look at all this data, and then students are sifted into tiered intervention groups where we're looking at that 15% of Tier 2 versus that 5% who get the Tier 3. The reason we call it TRI, the targeted reading instruction, is the time where everybody's being met where they, so everything can happen at once and people are moving around and getting exactly what they need at that time. So how it works out if a child is already on a plan, nobody misses Tier 1 instruction, but during if a special educator during that, and full disclosure, it's a little bit different at the schools right now, largely because of the reading pilot. We have a few different things going on. We have Journeys classrooms and we have pilot classrooms. So we're having to be a little bit flexible this year with how everybody's getting what they need, but it looks a little different because of some full grade level teams at different schools are piloting. So typically how it works is if I'm in the tier 2 realm in comprehension, I can still be in a tier 2 comp group and get my tier 3, it wouldn't even be tier 3 then, it would be special if I'm on a plan, my specialized reading from my special educator at another time. So it really depends on if it is just something that's already part of your goal in your IEP, then your special educator is servicing that for you.
Right.
And the 504 students would be in the regular shakeup of the tiers and the TRI.
It's kind of like we're creating some individualized plans. So if a student is struggling, there is an individualized kind of plan. It's there. Here's your intervention with other students who might need the same intervention. And some might be by reading specialists and interventionists. And if you're on an IEP, it might be by your special educator. And so that we're trying to target what you're getting based upon the data.
Yeah, I think that's great because it says every 6 to 8 weeks they're monitoring that progress, which I think is really important.
Right. And again, the literacy team has been doing that forever. It's just now we have a schedule to support it. So it's not meeting people in the parking lot for a data meeting on the way home from school. So it's more formalized, which is nice.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Anything else? Matt, how about you? Any questions?
Yep, I have my hand raised.
Oh, okay. Sorry, couldn't see.
2 questions, please. Thank you for this. Do we have the ability to look at this historically, like how this compares to previous years? Better, worse, similar?
Yeah, so we do is the short answer because that and again this is only our second year of iReady, so that would be something that we could compare later in the year. Comparing beginning of year data isn't necessarily worth a ton of our time. It makes more sense further into the year only because weird things can happen over the summer in terms of regression or other things that skew our beginning of the year data sometimes. So it's really more when we're up and running that we can compare. Best is end of the year data, right? And see how far children have come. The Acadience database, I think goes back, I want to say 6 years, 4 years. Okay, thank you. I'm getting signals from the audience. 4 years. Thought it was 6. And we do have the data sheets that the reading specialists have kept forever. So yes is the short answer that we can do that. But the Acadian Stibbles tests is slightly different than the other one.
I guess where I'm going with the question is I certainly don't want to create unnecessary extra work, but I just looking at it, I don't have a great sense of if this is great. We feel really great about where we're at, or this is perfectly normal, or wow, first grade in particular kind of jumped out there as comparatively to some of the other grades.
Right.
Maybe that's normal. Maybe that's like a normal thing that happens when the expectations are higher for first grade. Maybe that's a COVID thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's where I'm going in terms of the historical of just getting a better sense of
No.
how we feel about all this.
Right. No, I understand, and I know that when Dr. Lebewois did the presentations in, I believe it was March of the last 2 years, he was looking at specifically the subtests for each of the years and where the trends were going. And I do think that sort of bigger comparison is where we're headed as we move further along. But there's also so many news happening right now too. Like My Path is totally new to the district as far as a learning tool, and we just need to get a little further along in order to make some, I think, comparisons. But you're right, in looking at the data just from afar, grade 1 is the one that would stand out. It doesn't. The other thing that we're not seeing here on the district level data is that, it looks different school to school depending on the grade level in front too. So there's more information that we can get to all around, but we need more time to collect something to compare it to.
I think Matt too. Oh, sorry, Matt. What we'd like to do is come back in the winter and the spring to share the progress. So our hope is those students that you're seeing below grade level are going to move to the next tier, and we'll see progress over to the left, right? So those that are in the furthest to the right are moving over to the left as we provide really direct intervention, both by classroom teachers, reading specialists, interventionists, all working together, looking at the data, that we'll see that progress. One of the things that Mary said that I think is important, there's a lot of learning loss that can happen, especially in the younger grades, between the spring and the fall. And then really quickly you can see kids are regaining those skills as fast as 8 weeks into the school year. You're like, wow, there's great progress being made, and you can pick up those skills pretty quickly. So I think that when we come back in the winter and the spring, you'll see I know you'll see that progress being made.
That makes sense. One other quick question. So I get that we are doing a ton at the individual level, which would hopefully, which we would the children to progress. Like, would we ever look at a grade, and maybe it's just too early, and say, well, what's going on? Man, we aren't progressing as much as we would want, or is there something systemic?
I think that we always look at the classroom level, the teacher level, the grade level, the school, and that's something that principals and the leadership team are always looking at to see if where more additional resources needed. Is there more supports? So I think that kind of macro level that you're talking about is one component. It also gives us information on curriculum as well. Is there something that we need to supplement with it, or something that we need to change in classrooms? So I think that macro level is something as we definitely look at data to do.
Right. And I said that a little bit in the MCAS meeting that we, sometimes it's interesting to follow cohorts. And then when there are instructional shifts, like there will be when we adopt a brand new reading program, then it does become really important to look across, from year to year, because that there's been a big shift in curriculum and delivery on some levels too. So we do look at it both ways.
And to identify places where it's really working. Right?
Exactly.
Where
right.
Great things are happening.
Right.
Sort of celebrate those too, and share.
For sure.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right.
Thank you so much, Mary.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. So I will follow up basically on what Mary just said. A lot of the same information. So I will try to save talking through all the same points, and a lot less data as well to go through. But hopefully we'll still see some excellent things in here. So when we first look at our K-2 data, again, I don't need to walk you through every single data point, but focusing on yellow and green are our students who are ready for on-grade level work. So again, we see strong numbers here in K-2. Similarly, in grades 3 through 5, again, the number of students in those yellow and greens are quite high. And then we also additionally are using this fully in grade 6 as well, the diagnostic assessment this year, and are just getting rolling with MyPath as well. And again, in grade 6, seeing 98% of our students ready for on grade level work. So when we look at our students with disabilities, however, again, similar to what we saw with the ELA cohorts, we see a different percentage there of students that are 2 grades below level or 3 grades below grade level, particularly obviously in grades 1 through 6, noting that you can't be 2 grades below grade level right at the earlier grades there. So just something to kind of keep in mind at kinder, that you wouldn't see a red bar there to begin with anyway. But again, when we circle back to this idea of our tiered system of support and really trying to identify students who need some help. Again, this is a group that we've been focused on. We talked about it a lot during the MCAS presentation. Again, seeing the data here, sort of jumping out that we have some disparity and need to continue to focus more energy here. This is the same data, just for people who would prefer it in a different format, which I know we have multi-learners out here. And really to look at the data, I think the important thing is when we add in sort of that arrow of everybody to the left is ready for on grade level work. So again, in great shape for all of our students as we look at our data here. Generally, again, when we look in K through 2, about 95% of our students were ready to access the grade level curriculum at the beginning of the school year. That's fantastic. Our students with disabilities, again, we saw that sort of dip off there to 82% of students ready to access that grade level instruction. And if we were to focus sort of on a specific domain, we don't get, Mary had that real robust list of data from iReady. We don't get that in the same way for the math data. But I was able to sort of suss out that numbers and operations domain for K through 2 was sort of the standout operation for our students with disabilities. As we shift to grades 3 through 6, 94% of our students are ready to access grade level curriculum. Again, that's fantastic. For our students with disability subgroup, 80% of our students. At that point, sort of the bigger domain that jumped out was geometry, which tends to make sense because we would focus on algebraic thinking and numbers and operations first for intervention for anybody that was younger. And for some of those students in 3 through 6 who were in school during the COVID and hybrid learning, again, geometry, measurement, and data might be areas where we would have gone to second. By and large, our students with disability subgroup shows an average of 22% of our students below grade level across 1 through 6. We have similar next steps as the ELA group does. Again, we are implementing iReady MyPath, but for us, it's across grades K through 6 as opposed to just 3 through 5. We are using the iReady diagnostic data to inform our decisions about how we're setting up our intervention groupings. We are meeting with our classroom teachers, again, with much more regularity about setting up data and actually having these formal data meetings, which is wonderful, and to have the support from the principals in terms of structuring that into our program and providing coverage or however they can to make sure those happen has been fantastic and really has sort of started to change the conversation that we're building around using student data to make decisions. So that's really been fantastic. In grades K through 5, again, similar to what we talked about during the MCAS report, we're supporting the implementation of the math workshop block and the use of the core instructional practices and sort of folding some of the MyPath work into that. In grades 6 through 8, we're using iReady data to make our decisions for our math lab interventions, which are similar to the elementary interventions there. So again, another tool that's really helpful to sort of make some concrete decisions, not just to move students in, but also have students have an opportunity to move back out if they're doing great, or to give us another look. A lot of times we're leaning heavily on test scores or an MCAS score, and that's sort of that one piece in time. Now you've got another piece of data that can, along with teacher recommendations from 5th grade and 6th grade, you have MCAS data over multiple years, and you have now another new piece of data to look at, so we can really make a much broader decision. And it's not that a student just had one bad day and oops, now you're stuck in this class for the next term or 2 terms when you may not belong there. So that's really been a good positive at the middle school that we've seen. And then another next step that's not specifically math specific, but the special ed department has adopted the Let's Go Learn assessment and progress monitoring tool that they're using for the special education students. That sort of is fit. We have plans to actually look at some of that data and how it compares to some of our iReady data, and just to have sort of a better sort of overview of all the data that we're collecting together. So that'll be something that we do with Mrs. Roberts to sort of compare across those departments. So much quicker than Mary, but much quicker to questions. So,
any questions?
I'm wondering, in the elementary grades, what do we do with the top performers in math?
So the top performers will get, similar to what Mary mentioned in terms of our targeted math instruction, that is not just an intervention, right?
Mhm.
It's sort of a what I need block, what everybody needs. So one of the great things that we've got from iReady is it's really helped us to delineate different, get 5 different tiers of students out of that.
Mhm.
And so we'll be able to provide some enrichment for those students as well. The other piece is the MyPath program inherently allows students to work on material that's suited specifically for where they're at. So if a student is a high flyer or accelerated, so to speak, they'll get work that's appropriate for them, and they'll be able to push forward.
So the MyPath is a tool for the highest performers as well as the lowest performers.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Which is why we love it so much. We're really excited to be using it.
Matt, did you have your hand raised?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to reconcile, maybe I'm not understanding. So the one, we had a pretty large number in the 1 grade below level.
Yes.
And you kept, multiple times you use the term like, the vast majority are already at the grade level. So can you help me understand better what one, like
certainly.
How to think about that grade level, below one grade below level category, in terms of like, is that meeting expectations because it's the beginning of the year, or?
Correct. Yes. So I think a way to maybe think about it is that at the very beginning of grade 3, and our grade 3 students would have taken this assessment, 5 or 6 days into the school year. So at the beginning of grade 3, they have only learned or have only been taught the grade 2 curriculum. So a student who may appear as knowing all of grade 2 or is sort of at that yellow, they're 1 grade level behind to start the school year. But since it's the beginning of the year assessment, that actually puts them in position to be exactly where they're supposed to be to start the school year. Does that make sense?
It does. So
Okay.
I guess sort of somewhat of a similar question I had before, and not necessarily looking at ourselves compared to the previous year, but do we have any idea like how we compare to other towns? Like, the numbers that we look at, are we like, wow, this is great that we have 20% that are already at the grade level and 70% that are 1 below.
So that makes sense.
Like, okay, we don't know, which is fine. I'm curious if we have any idea of if we should feel good about this, or it's just kind of like, oh, it's the beginning of the year, so all we can really focus on is doing everything we can with the kids, from this assessment, to the next one.
So there's a couple things. We don't have historical data. This is our first year for using the math program. So this is our first year of using that data. Secondly, there are, when we spoke with the iReady people, sort of as part of our beginning of the year presentation, they don't compare town to town. That's not something that they do. So, you could theoretically, one of the things to come back to is sort of look at the Massachusetts and the national norms. And, clearly we're doing well. So that's one way of sort of contextualizing it, I think. But the other thing that I would hearken back to as you get into those numbers, right? The larger data, yes, sure, I'd say we're doing well, but I think the sort of charts that I put together to look at the students with disabilities category highlights that we still have sort of, and I think this is the exact question I talked to you, or point I made to you last time, Matt, as well, that we're really kind of honing in on those students who need that additional support to make sure that we're moving all students, but in particular, we have a larger percentage of our special ed students who we need to try and move into the yellow and greens as well. So I hope that answers your question, but if I need to be more specific, please elaborate.
No, that's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? No? All right. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate the time. I see that Coach Quattromoni is here. Do you want to just stay on academics though and go to, all right. Coach Quattromoni, we skipped over 7.3, but do you mind if we go to if we hear the update from the class of 22 and then do you? Okay, thank you. There we go. Stick on the academics and then go to our student athletes.
Heather,
do you
you're up.
wanna- Yep, we're gonna have you come up, Heather. Take your time.
Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Rodriguez, Director of School Counseling. It's been, I've been doing this for years and years, but last year, because of whatever and COVID things, I wasn't here, so it's good to be back. So just tonight's report is a report on the plans of the graduating class of 2022, as well as testing data for the class of 2022. I will specify some data is specific to the cohort class of 2022, and some is the testing year of 2022. So I'll let you know kind of what data we're looking at as we go along. Hopefully. Okay. My clicker doesn't seem to be clicking, so Sherry, if you don't mind advancing, that would be great. Thank you. All right. Does that take us out of present mode if we do it that way? Okay, so it's a little bit smaller, so I apologize for that. So this is just a snapshot of data for the class of 2022. There we go. So if we look at their plans, there were 316 graduates, just so you kind of know the number that we're looking at. And you'll notice that the four-year college-going population is slightly down. Two-year prep schools is pretty consistent, but where we are seeing a bigger number is students going to a gap year program. So that kind of accounts for the drop in the four-year enrollments. But what we are seeing is the kids that are doing gap year programs are then going on to four-year after a semester or after a year. So nothing super unusual or concerning. That's why we are seeing that adjustment. And if you look at our overall continuing education, everything is pretty consistent. We haven't seen a giant trend because of COVID away from anything. But again, we're going to continue to watch this as the years go on and see if anything changes. Let's see if there we go. Now I can control it. So where did everybody go that graduated? Geographically, we see the most students staying in the Northeast, with 1/3 of our kids pursuing higher education staying in Massachusetts. That continues the trend of the past 5 years. So in 2021, so this year we had about 30% of matriculating students staying in Massachusetts. In the past 5 years, last year it was 27%, 2 years ago, 27, 2019, 27, popular number. In 2018, it was 24% stayed in Massachusetts, and back in 2017, 30%. So that hasn't really changed because of COVID or any other reason. That's been consistent. We've seen for the past few years, we had a few more international students. That kind of went down a little bit. We've always had pretty small numbers, but I think with COVID going a little farther afield and overseas wasn't what some kids were quite willing to do yet. Then the next slide we have is looking at where our students submitted applications the most. And so I just kind of included the top 25 to get a snapshot of that. State schools tend to be pretty popular. So UMass, Amherst, and other Massachusetts state schools, but also University of Vermont, University of New Hampshire. Those are our heavy hitters where our kids like to apply and always have been. I know the slide, it's in the packet, it's much easier to read the slide. It's a little tiny print. All right, and then where did the students actually attend? I included the top 25 schools. So again, UNH was the big winner last year, and UMass coming in a close second. BC, Fairfield, Syracuse kind of round out the top 5. So students are ultimately choosing to enroll pretty close to home, and that has been historically true as well. Moving on to some testing data. So this data is the 2022 cohort class. So the students in that graduating class, as opposed to SAT tests taken during the 2022 school year. So the SAT and college entrance testing in general has become optional in the college admissions process during COVID. And we're seeing that continue, especially for most colleges have announced like the next year or two, at least, of the admissions cycles. This means that students choosing to test now may be a little more self-selecting. They feel like their test scores may be an advantage for them in the college admissions process. So in a little bit, I'll kind of tell you the percentage of test takers that we've seen. But where test optional means that it doesn't need to be part of a college admissions process for the vast majority of schools, we are seeing a little bit lower percentage of our students taking the test even in the first place. And usually students who do want to use test scores in a test optional environment would be the ones where their test scores would be at the mean that the school accepts or higher. Those would be the students choosing to submit in a test optional environment to have those actually looked at. So we have seen participation rates for testing drop a little bit in the past 2 years. But score-wise, our scores still compare very favorably to Massachusetts and state means, which is consistent with what we've been seeing for a number of years. Overall, our Hingham student score is 114 points higher than the state and 193 points higher than the national means for the combined tests. And then in reading, Hingham High School students are 56 points higher than the state mean and 94 points higher than the national mean. Then we get into a little bit of demographic data just to dive into some subgroups. Students who tested in 2022 are included in this data set. So the state DESE takes data from districts and publishes that. So that's where this comes from. And they use not just the graduating class cohort, but all students who tested in the 2021-2022 school year. So this group provides some data for students in subgroups. The definitions of those subgroup categories the school committee members have in their packets. So if you're interested in those, I can go over those as well. Just a note, when we do start to delve into subgroups for data purposes, specifically student subgroups, most admissions processes are test optional. So usually it's the students who believe that it's going to help their application again. So students in subgroups such as special education or who may be economically disadvantaged or don't have the means to do a test prep may not feel like their test scores are going to be in the middle or higher of the accepted means at colleges. So they may choose not to test. So we're again seeing a self-selected population in these numbers as well.
Would it ever be possible to have a demographic group of Metco students? Because I know there's overlap. I'm just wondering, that would be good data to see if we're serving those kids well.
I think the group would be too small.
Would it be too small? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I could individually hand pull, like the state won't report that to us, but I could hand pull them out. But again, I don't know if it would be.
Then would be sort of, the group would be so small that that's why we'd be able to identify. That's why you see they don't give you the score if it's less than 10, so that we don't identify any particular student.
That makes sense.
I just wanted to add that the new partnership that Amy Jackson has with that kind of college-bound group, I believe test prep is part of the that package, so that will be freely available to all of our METCO students that participate in that program.
Thanks. And also, just another note on the data that it's, again, a snapshot. So we don't necessarily draw any causal conclusions with this. It's just kind of where students are right now. And it's, when you're looking at specific populations, it's hard to make a comparison when you don't have the whole group either. All right. So mean scores, we have a nice robust set of data to look back at to see how our mean scores have gone. So this chart just kind of shows that data. And I told you that we would look at percentages percentages of the class that take the SAT. So in 2017, 85% of the class took the SAT. In 2018, 92% of the class took the SAT. 2019, it was 74.4, which is pre-pandemic, so I was a little surprised at that. 2020, 84.7% of the class, and now we see the pandemic dip starting in 2021. 70% of the class took the SAT, and the last year in 2022, only 67% of the graduating class took the SAT. So we'll see if that continues as a trend as we move forward in time.
And can I assume that the jump in scores is because of that self-selection with fewer students taking it?
That's what I would assume. Yeah.
If a student takes the SAT, do they have to have that score public?
They do not.
Okay. I was wondering
No.
if that's part of people's decision about whether or not to.
Correct. So they can receive their score and never send it anywhere.
Okay.
So those scores actually, even if they don't send it, are included in our data.
Okay.
Then we move on to the ACT. So ACT data, these are tests taken in the 2021-22 school year, so not a graduating class cohort. The ACT is a college entrance exam just given by a different company than the College Board, which is the SAT. So universities will accept either the SAT or the ACT. The ACT is more of a curriculum-based test, whereas the SAT is a little bit of a more of a reasoning-based test. So some students find that one style of test suits their testing style a little bit better. Hingham provides students exposure to both types of tests. We offer the pre-ACT, which is a practice ACT, in the sophomore year, and then a pre-SAT, the PSAT, in the junior year. So students can choose, make a more informed decision if they do want to take each test for real, so to speak. They've had exposure to both types. The vast majority of students statistically have pretty comparable performance on either test, but there are small groups of students who find that they do really feel a little bit more comfortable or score higher on one or the other. So they just work with their counselor and their family to determine, is that me, and do I feel more comfortable with one test over the other? So if we look at comparison data and comparing ourselves and our mean scores to Massachusetts and the nation, we compare very favorably on the ACT as well. The composite score were 1.3 points higher, so it's on a 36 scale, 1 is 36. Points higher than the state and 8 points higher than the nation. And then it breaks down into more subtests than the SAT, where the SAT has reading, writing, and then math. This has math, reading, English, and science. So in English, we're 0.7 above the state mean and 8 points above the national mean. Math is 1.9 above the state and 8.2 points above the nation. Reading, 1.3 points above the state, 8.2 above the nation. And science, 1.4 points above the state and 7.3 nationally. And then the next chart just shows us historical data for ACT test takers. As you see, the numbers kind of steadily climb because the ACT wasn't a very popular test in the Northeast, and it has been gaining ground and becoming more popular. So we see a steady increase in the number of students taking the ACT, but our kind of means are stable. Yeah.
Do you have a sense of how many students took the ACT versus the SAT?
So yes, let me just find that. I think, did I say? So I know it was 65% or 67% took the SAT. And then if we had 159, if someone wants to do the math for me very quickly, 159 out of 316 is something.
God, where's Dave when you need
I know.
know.
Anybody have a calculator?
Like Heather, what are the numbers?
So 159 out of 316 will give us the percent.
Basically 50%.
Thank you. Yeah, well, yes, yeah. But again, those might have been juniors and seniors taking the test, but the class sizes are generally stable. So
No one in this room should be taking in the SAT or ACT. It took us all that time to come up with that. Where's the Hingham High graduate?
but you can use calculators on the exams, so that's okay. All right, moving on to AP data. So advanced placement exams our advanced placement classes are college level classes taught in high school. So it's a standardized curriculum given by the College Board. We teach them. AP exams are typically 4-hour exams, and they're taken upon conclusion of the year-long college level test. And so this data, again, just to point out, is testing year data, not graduating class cohort data. In general, we offer world history to grade 10. We offer US history and English language to grade 11. Chemistry tends to be students in grades 11 and 12. And then Spanish language is students in grade 11. And then most other classes are 12th graders. Students in Hingham are required to sit for the exam if they take the test. So that's just a good reference to have when you're looking at the data. It's not a self-selecting group of AP class takers. It's the entire cohort. Exams are scored on a 1 to 5 scale with a score of 3 or above considered demonstrating proficiency. So here we just wanted to share a little bit about the demographics of students taking AP exams. Again, subgroup data isn't available for subgroups due to numbers, so there's no mean reported for subgroups with fewer than 10 students. And then specifically, I know the last group kind of pulled out students with disabilities. We have a small enough cohort that they're under 10 students, so we don't have means to report for that group. The state defines students with disabilities as students on active IEPs for this purpose, which is interesting because that doesn't mean that we don't have students with disabilities taking the exams. They may not be on an active IEP. We had a fair amount of students who did test with accommodations, and many of those had been on an IEP previously in their educational experience, may have been on a 504 at the time of testing to receive the accommodations. So that gets a little bit nuanced and tricky. But again, that cohort is smaller. Yeah.
So how many students on active IEPs are defined as students with disabilities by the state to an AP class?
Last year we had 0. The year before we had 1.
Okay.
Yep. And that's at the time of testing. So I don't know if the state does that in May or what point in the year they pull that out. So for students with disabilities, we had 13 students test with accommodations and they took 20 exams. So some kids took multiple. All right. And if we look at AP testing performance, that just compares our performance to the state and national averages. So in 15 out of the 17 areas that we could report, we have a higher average than the state and the nation. Chemistry is one exam that I just wanted to point out, not to single out chemistry for any reason other than the fact that there has been a concerted effort in the past few years with a relatively new AP chemistry teacher at the high school to include students who have never been in honors level science classes and who aren't your traditional AP science-bound students, and she's opened that class up and really encouraged kids who have been in just college prep level classes to take AP chemistry. So that is probably why we're seeing it not, at the same level as the other courses where that may not be true.
Did the same thing happen with music theory? I just noticed it in the larger document.
No, yeah, music theory is usually, it's a small cohort. I'm surprised we even could report a mean. We had just over 10. I think we had 13 last year. That is usually a mix of students and a mix of grades, and it's a pretty technical course for music students. So I think some of them like the theory. They might be great at performance, and then they get into the theory class, and it's a pretty difficult course. All right, if we look at percent of grade 3 or higher, again, that 3 being the threshold for proficiency, we compare very favorably with the state and with the nation. And so this chart just shows the percentage of our kids with scores 3 through 5. Then I always think it's interesting to see enrollment data to see if anything's changing. We'll see some spikes in numbers in certain course areas, but those are enrollments over the past decade in the AP classes.
So everybody passed everybody got a 3, 4, 5 on world history, Spanish language and culture, computer science, and biology.
Yep.
That's really
That's great.
Yeah.
really impressive.
Yeah, there's often a number of exams where every single person does that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very impressive for our kids.
Intimidated.
I know, right? The brain power. If you look at just kind of a 5-year summary of AP data, we'll see how many students in each of the past 5 years took the exams. I always think it's interesting there's a number of students, and that can be very different than the number of exams taken. We have a lot of students who take multiple exams in a given testing year. And then if you do look at our AP students with scores 3+, 270 out of 293 kids had scores with 3+, which is great. So 92% overall globally, I think, is really great.
Why is the number of exams in 2021 so much higher? Not the total AP students. Oh, that's higher too.
Say that again.
There's 595 exams total taken in 2021.
Yes.
Way higher. Was that class particularly larger?
Not by a ton, but
They took
a little bit. Yes, they took a lot. They took multiple AP classes. Yeah. And I'll actually hit on that in my next slide slightly. So AP scholars.
Is the chemistry teacher continuing the experiment this year?
Yep.
Awesome. I wish more departments would do that. That's
It's
strong support.
Yep. And we've been talking about some kind of like quote unquote more accessible AP classes and kind of trying to encourage that so that we get a broader population of kids exposed to an AP class in some discipline. Yep. So
is there any discussion about allowing them to not have to take the exam?
I have not been part of any of those discussions yet, but I'm sure that would be something we could discuss.
Another thing we've been talking about is considering dual enrollment.
Mhm.
So another way to also provide access to college level courses is to look at some of our courses that seniors take and be able to offer them college credit through one of the state colleges. So you would take your course, we'd get the syllabus approved by the college, have the teacher as an adjunct faculty, and then be able to offer 3 credits as you take this course. So we're exploring that particularly in world language. I think it's also an incentive to get kids to take that level 4, level 5 course and be able to have college credit that potentially could transfer. You get 3 credits that you can transfer. It's also a potential financial savings as well. So we think it's an incentive to get kids to stay with languages as one area. And I think there are other places we might explore dual enrollment.
So AP Scholar Awards recognize students who have great achievement on AP courses. So one of the changes that you'll see is they've discontinued a couple of the levels of the AP Scholar Awards because those were tied to the sheer number of tests that students took. So the College Board was finding that the more they encouraged students to take multiple APs, kind of that just was leading to a little bit of stress and burnout and the social emotional stuff. So they've stopped encouraging that by awarding it with a special scholar designation. So they've taken the National Scholar away. But those are the definitions for all the different levels, which generally is grades of 3 or higher on 3 or more exams is the first threshold for AP Scholar. And then AP Scholar with honor is an average grade of 3.25 on all of the exams that they've taken, and grades 3 or higher on 4 or more exams, and then it kind of goes up from there. So we have, we've seen some kids have taken 8 AP exams, and I don't know how they remain functional and do that at the same time. But we have kids that do it. So that is historical chart of our AP scholars and the different levels that they've attained. So we have really high achievers, which is great. And then the last piece that we have is the National Merit Scholarship Competition. So this is based off of the PSAT given in the junior year. So students are identified as either committed students or semifinalists, depending on what threshold they meet if they're in a top percentage of test takers on the PSAT. So that is the definition right there. And then you'll see just historically, we have had a semifinalist in some years, a couple in other years. But the more robust category is commended students. We've had a lot of kids recognized that way. So 3.8% of last year's class was recognized either as, well, not a semifinalist because last year we didn't have anyone, but as a commended student. So thank you. Any other questions?
Impressive stuff. Thank you.
Matt, do you have any questions for Heather Rodriguez?
Yes, thanks. Just hold my hand here. So I had 2 questions going back to the college data. We don't need to pull it up, but the first is how do we? You talked about 4-year colleges were slightly lower. Gap years are up, and obviously for each individual student, I don't think we have a point of view on, one thing is better than another. Employment might be the right answer for this student versus the military versus 4-year college. But, we looked at the data and 4-year colleges were at 10% in 10 years. That probably would be the wrong answer. So how do you or how does the administration think about that data and what does success look like? I think the answer is each individual student goes to the place that is right for them in the best place. But looking at it all, how do we think about that?
Yep. I mean, I look at it, and you're exactly right. I think it's such an individual decision for students. I think what we want to look at is, are they college ready? Do they have that option? Can they keep that door open? Because if we're starting to see students not even have that as an opportunity, then we need to look at what we're doing. But we have most of our students, even who go for employment, they're taking a couple of classes. They may not be full-time students, so we can't categorize them in continuing education, but they are keeping their feet wet, so to speak, and then getting a little bit more college ready. So I think it's, looking historically at where our students have gone and what they've been doing, and then every couple years kind of looking to see, is that continuing, and are they ready to meet with success? Also looking at, we do get some data of retention in college. Are they staying there? Are they prepared once they get there?
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
And then one other quick question. Do we have historical data on, so that, the top 25 schools that we sent people to in 2022, do we have what that looked like in 2017 versus 2012 versus, and how has that changed? I mean, I keep hearing how challenging it is to, get into schools. And so I'm just curious if we look at that, and sort of, I don't know what the right metric would be, but, top or Ivy League schools, how many, do we have a similar percentage? Top 200 universities, do we have that historically? Do we look at that historically, I guess?
We do, yes.
And I guess I would love to get access. I'd love to dig into that if it's readily available. I don't want it to be work.
It is. You can log right on to hinghamhighschoolcounseling.weebly.com, and all of the thanks, all of these, it's robust in a number of areas, but all of these reports back to 2013 are right on the website, and so you can pore over that data and see the full list of where students applied, percentages, because I know in the full report we have the number of applications, the net number of applications, acceptances, denials, deferrals, things like that. So yeah, going back to 2013, you can see that both application data as well as matriculation data. I will just give everyone a caveat, and this is all, we bend over backwards to get students to tell us where they got in and where they're going. The big push for that is we need to know where to send their final transcript. So we kind of use that as a carrot. If you don't tell us where you're going, then they won't accept you ultimately because they need your high school transcript. But we don't get direct reporting from colleges as to admissions decisions. Some schools will give that as a courtesy, but I would say the vast majority do not. So we rely on our kids to tell us, yes, I actually applied there. Did I get in? Did I not get in? Was I deferred? All of that. Our deferral data, I would say, is the least robust or getting in off of a deferral or a wait list, because some students take themselves off of a wait list, or some students, they go off, they've graduated high school, it's the middle of the summer, they got off of a wait list somewhere, they just decide to change their decision, and we may not know about that. So that data is only as good as what the kids tell us.
Pretty impressive to get on. I can't believe that's actually get all of them actually.
I don't want to say that we threaten them, but we do tell them it's a graduation requirement to fill out our survey. And Naviance, the software that we use, does a good job of having a pre-made survey where it kind of pre-populates, here's where you applied or told us you applied. And so it's just clicking a button for them. They don't have to rely on their memory, but we do strongly encourage them to participate in that survey. So.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
And I think every once in a while, a student comes screaming into your office to let them know where they got in.
There might be some tears and hugs and jumping sometimes, yes.
Anything else? I'm
All right.
loving this. So.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. That's great data. Thank you. All right. We'll go back now to 7.3 to receive winter coaching assignments and fall winter MIAA waivers.
Good evening again. I think this is 2 in a row. The winter coaching appointments, I believe, are in your packet. I don't have much to add to that, but if you had any questions before I get into the waivers.
Yeah. So are there no unified sports over the winter?
There are not, though we are exploring unified bowling right now.
Oh, great. Okay.
Ness.
And then this might be a question for Margaret. I noticed that the boys basketball appears to have one additional coach than the girls basketball. Didn't know if that creates a problem for us. And it's a booster stipend.
It's based on the total participation. I can say that word. Participation.
And actually, Margaret, it's the same. It might even out because on the track, there's 2 boys coaches and 3 girls.
I'm wondering if we're missing booster stipend on the girls' side, because there are 4 coaches in both programs.
Yeah. It's not okay. Yeah. We only have 3 for girls.
Yeah, there's only 3 listed.
Million Holler, Pierce. So there should be 4.
There should be 4.
Thank you. Thanks.
I think it's not on the. I think it's not on our
Spreadsheet. Shared boys and girls.
That's correct. That's correct. One thing to be careful of when you're looking at these the coaching positions and the number of them, sometimes when there is a disparity, there are coaches that come. Hockey is a great example. There are coaches that might come a day or 2 a week, but we still have to put them through the process and put them on the ladder. If that would be helpful in the future, I can indicate there where that when appropriate.
Yeah, sure. That'd be great. Thank you. Anything else on the coaching assignments? Matt, you good with coaching assignments? Take that as a yes. All right, the waivers.
Okay, so waivers. The Massachusetts Interscholastic.
I'm sorry. Oh, he's good. Sorry. Go ahead.
All good?
No, there's a thumbs up.
Okay. Thank you. The Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association provides a few opportunities for districts to apply for waivers in scenarios that teams that have been traditionally offered, levels that have been traditionally offered, might be light on numbers. And the idea in providing this is that high school participation is preserved, not maximizing middle school participation or a partnership with another community to create some sort of power team. And the way that they regulate this is in a waiver process that starts on your league level. So you need to go to your league and you need to explain we're in the Patriot League for the vast majority of our sports. So you explain to the Patriot League the package that you're going to put together to put forth to the district Athletic Committee. District Athletic Committee is made up of athletic directors and principals in our district. The state is split up in 9 districts, and we're a member of District 9. So at that point, if you get approval from your league, you can take the next step. Just a side note, because it's appropriate to a waiver I'm going to talk about tonight. If you happen to be like our boys hockey team, an independent team that does not play a league schedule, you have to go and ask all of your opponents, despite the fact that they're not in your league. And they have to give you approval to go to the next level. And then at the District Athletic Committee, you provide a packet that asks a series of questions up to and including that you're not cutting or displacing high school athletes. And they set benchmarks for numbers that they'd be looking for in any of the waivers that we would be applying for. So there were no waivers in the fall. There are 3 waivers that I'll talk to you about tonight, 2 different categories. The first is a cooperative team. And so we had 8 student athletes come out to participate in gymnastics. The number that the DAC is looking for, where they start to entertain this idea, is right around 14. We had a family reach out from Hull, and that has turned into 4 or 5 candidates as we're working through right now that had some experience. And so we'll combine for this year. We'll have a cooperative team with Hull for gymnastics. That's a 1-year approval, and we will look at that on a year-to-year basis. Do you want to just go through them all, or do you want to ask questions? Okay. So the second is girls ice hockey, an 8th grade waiver for our junior varsity team. Now, there was a little bit of back and forth last year with how our numbers go. And hockey is one of the games that injuries, even though the girls' game is not played as physically as the boys' game, where by rule, they cannot check the way that is allowed in a boys' game. Injuries can pop up. And last year we had a situation where we lost some kids and lost some kids due to interest as well. This particular waiver, we had 10 young ladies that would be part of the JV team. The magic number that you're looking for is right in that 18 number. And we would expect that we're going to be in that 6 to 8 range of 8th graders that will be interested in participating when this is all said and done. This particular waiver is set up in a way intentionally that if something were to happen with numbers for whatever reason with the JV team, I would have to start all over to be able to even have them to be considered to be part of the varsity team. Again, that was, go ahead.
And this is just one JV team, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Correct. Just by interest. And then lastly, boys ice hockey. The 3rd level, so we call it JV White, had 14 student athletes that we were looking at. The hockey numbers have taken a little bit of a dip on the boys' side over my time here this particular year. They were strong last year. So again, the magic number is right around 18, and we were granted a waiver by the District Athletic Committee, and we're expecting 4 to 6 8th graders that would be participating. When I come back for another meeting, I'll give you the real numbers on those things.
Okay. Jen?
Just out of curiosity, what are the, because I know I'm not hockey. What are the varsity numbers? Are those the same, around 18?
Varsity, no. The boys varsity is 25.
Okay.
JV1, the JV red, is 23.
Okay.
The boys varsity number is a little bit lower than what we've been having. Physical game, we're playing an independent schedule. The injuries are definitely a part of that program. Girls are 18 on the varsity team.
Yes.
When the 8th graders move up, assuming they get the waiver, do they then have to pay the athletic fees same as the other athletes?
Yes.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, so if you lost varsity hockey players, when you were saying you have to start over, so you can't just.
So the way that I wrote this waiver, even if we lost varsity hockey players on either side, without starting over with the waiver process, there is no way that 8th graders would access the varsity level.
Okay. Great. Okay. Matt, do you have anything?
Yeah, I didn't really understand. I guess I didn't really fully understand that.
Sure. So the eighth graders on the boys' side are 2 levels away from varsity, so that I think that kind of stands alone. But on the girls' side, we have 10 JV players, and we're looking to add 6 to 8 eighth graders. That's what it looks like from signups that will come on board. If injuries, anything takes players away from the girls' varsity program, if they need to bring kids up, they will be high school students. If we were to have a situation arise that I was needing to access 8th grade students on the varsity level, I would have to start this process all over with the league, right to the DAC, and obviously consulting with Dr. Adams.
Yeah. Okay. So now they're
Allie?
I have a question on the gymnastics. This last part for the gymnastics.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, okay.
And we went through a similar process at that time, but is that just for high school students, or would there be an opportunity with that waiver to bring up middle school students?
So the district athletic committee is not going to approve a co-op and an 8th grade waiver. You have to make that decision.
So would there be a chance between the 2 schools, there still wouldn't be enough students to compete?
Would there are enough students to complete
So you
between
have enough
right, but by rule, the DAC at the charge of the MIA says pick one.
Right.
Pick one. Do one or the other.
Thank you.
I like the idea of that cooperative partnering. That's I think a great solution. Great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right. I think there's no action on this from us, so we're just accepting the report. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Happy holidays.
You too.
See you next meeting.
We'll be here again on January 9th. All right, to discuss a proposed fee increase for driver's ed to include non-residents. So Dr. Adams, you have this first. Is that you or Aisha?
I need to give her a microphone.
Oh, sorry, we're going to need to give you a slide over a microphone. Or if you want to go to switch seats.
I can just yell, don't worry. Back in September of last year, I think the school committee approved the continuation of the driver's ed program. And in meeting with the coordinator for the driver's ed program, we've evaluated the participation rate in the fall and from summer through the fall. And we recognize that we have available seats within the program. And we'd like to open up those seats to other neighboring districts and to charge a higher fee for those participants into the program. So we're requesting that for those participants, rather than charging the regular rate, we would like to charge $9.50 to access the program. And we'd also like to increase the cost of providing the program within our district from $800 to $850 for our residents.
Okay.
I also learned in talking to Aisha that we do get calls asking for non-residents looking to enroll. So there is interest. And I think one of the benefits in looking at our current fees and that the programs are self-sustaining, I think this will help generate more revenue so that the program in the long term can be self-sustaining. So that's why we're asking for that increase for non-residents in the winter, so we can help the program generate more revenue so that it's potentially self-sustaining for the future. It's breaking even right now, but you can see that it's barely breaking even.
Right. It doesn't contribute to our budget in any way either, but they do utilize our facilities. So that will be an area we'd like to look into to see how we can apply some of our costs to that program as well.
Okay. Carrie?
I think this makes a lot of sense, and whatever we could do to make the program healthy, because I know a lot of people find it, and I think differentiating the fees are we able to specify that it has to be neighboring students from neighboring towns, or can it be just anyone?
I think we would like to open it up to anyone who would like to use the program.
Okay.
But because of the calls that we've been getting, we're getting students from Hull, mostly Hull actually.
Okay. Sometimes Weymouth.
Sometimes Weymouth requesting information or finding out whether there are any available seats to use our program as well. Mostly students.
Okay. It's a good question though.
Yeah.
Did you have a question? Somebody else?
I had just a quick question. Sorry, I'm tired.
No.
The students added into the program that will kind of just that makes it the normal enrollment rate that we have. So I'm thinking about students who need to get those on the road hours and if it will impact their ability to get those hours in. Will it be harder? Will it be easier?
Right.
Are they able to get those hours easily?
Yes. Okay. Yes. So right now we're at capacity would be between 20 to 25 students within the program, and in some cases we're in the fall, for example, where the sports capacity for our students in the fall it seems greater. So we have less students signing up for driver's ed, for example. We have a lot more seats available and fewer students actually enrolling in the driver's ed program. So particularly at times like that, we would willingly open up the program to other districts, but we'll continue to have our kids have first priority and open it up to our kids for probably the first 2 weeks of registration to give them that first priority as well.
Right. No, I think this is great. Great to open it up to.
So to Carrie's point, is the current program open to Hingham residents or just Hingham Public Schools students?
It's residents.
Okay. So I guess that
makes sense.
All right. Yeah. Any other questions, Matt? You good? Any questions? All right. Yeah, to echo Carrie, I think this is a smart idea and clever is not the right word I'm looking for, but a great idea to keep this program because we do want to. I know we heard last year that this is really an important resource for students, and people really do want to keep it. So anything we can do to make it healthy and so we can keep it going would be great.
Do we need 2 votes for the 2 proposals?
Yeah,
Yes,
I don't know if we want to I don't know if we need to separate the 2 proposals out.
Well, it says to discuss a proposed fee increase for driver's ed to include non-residents. So I think we'll see whoever makes the motion how they want to word it.
I'll make
Are we
that
ready?
motion.
All right, I'm ready to accept the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the rate increase in the driver's education program to $850 per student, starting in the summer of 2023, and to allow the participation of non-Hingham residents at a cost of $950, beginning with the winter session.
I'll second.
All right, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor? Matt?
Aye.
Allie? Aye. Tim?
Aye.
Carrie? Aye. Jen?
Aye.
Yes?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great work. All right, 7.7, to receive a grant from the Cape Cod Bank for the World Language Program and act as appropriate.
So you have a memo from Erica Pollard, who applied for a Cape Cod 5 Foundation grant. It was a little mini grant of $497 to provide for flexible seating for the World Language Program at the high school. You'll see that suggested purchases are going to be yoga balls, foldable camp chairs, floor cushions to provide options in the classroom for students in the class. And she gives a description of how this just provides opportunities for students to access the classroom in a more flexible means. And we're very proud we have some other grants that we'll be bringing in January. The same thing, Cape Cod 5 Foundation will be bringing in January as well. So, but this is the first one. Great. Thank you.
And Hingham students will be able to say camp chair in 4 different languages.
Exactly. And yoga ball.
Yes.
By the way, creative was the word I was looking for anyone at home who was wondering what that word was I was grasping for. Any other questions about this grant or any questions about the grant? All right. Do you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to accept the grant of $497 provided by Cape Cod Bank for the purpose of purchasing flexible seating for the Hingham High School World Language classrooms.
Second?
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion? All right, seeing none. Matt?
Aye.
Allie? Aye. Tim?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Ness?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Amazing. Thank you. All right, item 8, subcommittee and project reports. Matt, I'll start with you. Do you have any?
Done.
None. All
No,
right.
East school obviously is by one. Game 6.
All right.
You did a great job.
Yes, Jonathan is still here. You don't have to be, so I'm glad to have you. I realize. Yeah, exactly. It will end at some point. I promise you that. Yes.
They keep telling me.
Alan, you know, anything that we keep telling ourselves. Yeah.
Nothing from the Arts Alliance. Our next meeting will be in January. They opted not to have a December meeting. PRS, they will be having their school council meeting tomorrow, so we'll attend that. Also, in case anyone hadn't yet seen the new updated wardrobe for the wizard.
Oh, nice.
Yes, that is his new outfit. So very exciting. And finally, Climate Action Planning Committee has a meeting on Wednesday evening via Zoom. And the sustainability coordinator, Ginny Leclerc, has officially started as of today. So that's very exciting for him. And that's all.
Tim?
Just subcommittee meetings. The special ed subcommittee met on December 1st, and the educational programming committee met on December 8th, and the Hingham Human Rights Commission met on November 30th.
All right, Carrie?
The Hingham Middle School Council will meet next Monday, the 19th. Salary negotiations met on December 7th to begin successor contract discussions with Unit B, which is our paraprofessionals. This is our first meeting with them, so we discussed ground rules and how we'll conduct ourselves going forward. It was a really productive conversation. We came into the meeting largely in agreement with many of the rules, and there are things that we've done in the past. There are a few things that the bargaining unit wanted to discuss and circle back on, so we're waiting for a response from the NTA rep on those. We have 3 more meetings scheduled with them on January 11th, January 17th, and February 1st. Our negotiation sessions are going to take place in executive session, which means close to the public. That's something we've always done, and that's done by the vast majority of school districts. It's considered best practice because it allows everyone in the room to speak freely and problem solve together. So we're really looking forward to these discussions. We kind of talked about this at the end of the meeting, that we all learned a lot over the past 3 years. So we're kind of looking forward to this opportunity to have a dialogue and to work through any concerns. And then lastly, I attended the MASC Learning Lunch last Friday. The topic was how to prepare for collective bargaining. And so that was useful timing. And the speaker was Elizabeth Valerio, who's a partner with Valerio, Dumanel, and Hillman, which is an education law firm. It was really informative and helpful. And just, I want to give a plug for upcoming MASC Learning Lunches. They get good speakers. They're only an hour, and well worth anyone's time if you can make it. So it's also nice to hear issues that come up in other districts too, because people will ask questions and you kind of hear. So.
Thank you. Jen?
I'll be attending the SNAP meeting, which is tomorrow at 6:30, and then policy is meeting next week.
Excellent. Yes.
There are warrants in your packet, and then finance subcommittee has several meetings. We had one today. They're going to mirror what we will ultimately hear in our January meeting. So today we met with the principals. On Thursday we meet with the director of facilities, transportation, athletics, and technology. And then next Wednesday we hear from the interim assistant superintendent and the executive director of student services. Foster School Council proposing to meet next Tuesday. There's been some schedule changes there, so the latest is next Tuesday. And then the Sustainable Budget Task Force met on December 1st.
Great. Building committee, as Dr. Adams mentioned in her email to us, preliminary work is starting. We are waiting for the final permits from Conservation Commission and the Planning Board. As soon as we have those in hand, we will start site work. Recess has moved to the front of the school and seems to be going well so far. So next phase will be building the temporary playground for the next 18 months until the new school opens. So I think that is that for me, other than our next school committee meeting is Monday, January 9th. That's a regular meeting at 7. And then we begin our budget meetings Thursday. We'll have one at January 12th. We'll have one Wednesday, January 18th, and then the next would be Monday, January 23rd. The budget meeting, sorry, our regular meeting is Monday, January 23rd. Our budget meetings will be starting at 6 p.m., just to remind folks, rather than 7.
I know the budget meetings are divided by week, sort of by topic. Do we publicize the topics of each week?
Yes, those will be on the agendas, and
Okay.
yeah, and then we can share that with folks. Yes, what will be
It's on the
spoken.
budget calendar too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yes. I think that's it for me. Anything else from you, Dr. Adams? Right? Anything under 48 hours from anyone? No. All right. With that, I would take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second.
All right. All those in favor? Matt?
Aye.
Allie?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes. I mean, Jen?
Aye.
Yes. Aye. I'm an aye as well. And Mr. Hawes, you don't get a vote, but we will adjourn for your behalf. We are adjourned. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.